Meeting to order, May 9th, 2022, Long Hill Township Board of Education meeting. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Long Hill Township Board of Education was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was sent to the Echo Sentinel and Daily Record on September 21st, 2021. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the first floor entrance of the School District Administration Building, Gillette, New Jersey. Notices were filed with the Township Clerk, and notices were mailed to all persons who have requested individual notice pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Here.
Mrs. Daly?
Here.
Mr. DeJamos?
Here.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Here.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Here.
Mrs. McLennan?
Here.
Ms. Nyquist?
Here.
Ms. Rivolo?
Here.
Mrs. Case?
Here.
9 members present.
Thank you. Communications.
I don't have
Any?
any.
Any? Okay. I just wanted to kick off one comment about one of the issues that we've been having in the district. So I just have a quick statement. The Long Hill Board of Education and School Administration wants to communicate to the community for better understanding, geez, I haven't read out loud in a long time, of the difficulty that we have been experiencing with school transportation during this school year. The statewide shortage of bus drivers that has been interrupting transportation services quite often, especially during the past 3 or 4 weeks, obviously has been an issue. Information regarding last-minute changes or cancellations are communicated to families as soon as we receive the information. We as a school district are working as diligently as we can to reduce tardiness and disruption to our transportation services. We want to thank the community for its cooperation and understanding as the district works out issues during these trying times, and I'd like to thank Dan and his staff for all the work that they've been doing in this space. Board, committee, and liaison reports. Karen.
Okay, on April 13th, there was a Morris County Ed Services Commission meeting. Excuse me. As I mentioned before, the only way they get their revenues, no state aid, nothing from property taxes, it's by services that they generate. And they had a service for a while where they would assist districts with observations, and then it went away. Well, for some reason, it's been reborn, and they've been pulled in and to work on observations for tenured and non-tenured teachers, so that's a good source of revenue for them. They had their financial report, absolutely no recommendations whatsoever, and we discussed the superintendent evaluation. So come this Wednesday, we'll be doing what we're going to be doing tonight for here. So that's that. For policy, obviously you see the policies listed on the agenda. They've been previously remarked to you, or they're up for first reading, for passage, because there's absolutely no changes whatsoever. There were 2 policies which are in discussion with Dr. Mucci. We're referring to the Student Achievement Committee, and it was brought up there's a health policy, and it's going to be reviewed by the administration and nursing probably, and it's associated with food for parties and holiday parties and whatever. With respect to governance, we all know we did what we did. We got the CSA done. This is my mistake, my mishap. I was to review the final draft of the Code of Governance, pass it to the rest of the committee, and then we get it to you. It will be done shortly, so we can take care of that. And we discussed, right now we're gonna hold off on attempting to schedule any other training. Maybe think about it after we have our retreat, and it'll be in the 4th quarter, because we've just, we got some training, the retreat counts for something, and then comes, the 4th quarter, we can do something then, and that's about it.
Okay. Any questions for Karen? Okay. Danielle?
I have no report.
Okay. Ann?
The Student Achievement and Curriculum Committee met on Wednesday, April 27th at 3:30. Dr. Mucci, Dr. Jones, myself, Katie McLennan, Kim Case, Tom Grosnoff. Am I pronouncing correctly?
Close enough later.
We're in attendance. We are going to be moving, was on the agenda, the SAGE Counselor and the Choose Love Program discussion to our next meeting. We had a brief discussion of expectations for students who may be observing holidays where the school district is in session, and so there may be school days, and how there's accommodations so that there would be no homework or tests or quizzes for students on those days as needed, and communicated between the teachers and the families. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team is looking closely at district practices and communications to make sure that all groups of students are considered and included, and that our lessons and material do not alienate perspectives that may exist within the classroom. And the team is actually meeting with the policy committee and to discuss at the board level.
And Kim also.
And Kim. We also discussed the comprehensive health and physical education standards, which have been in the news recently at a state level. So we reviewed those New Jersey state standards, and Dr. Mucci and Dr. Jones clarified that there's a range of ways to demonstrate understanding of a topic within the health curriculum that is at an age-appropriate level. It was also a discussion at Dr. Mucci's recent coffee house, and I believe the discussion is posted online. So people who are interested in information on that topic and the school's approach to that topic can use that as a resource. Information for the health curriculum is communicated to parents, and parents should feel comfortable reaching out and asking questions to the health teachers when they have them. And I think that was it for student achievement. Let me skip over to PTO. Okay, so the PTO general meeting coming up is Wednesday, May 11th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. The invitation and link for the Zoom meeting is posted on the PTO page on the district website. There are 2 teacher requests on the agenda for board's approval tonight, so thank you to the PTO for that. Through the generosity of Millington students and families, the Pennies for Puppies program raised $2,028 for the Seeing Eye in Morristown, and the Millington school students learned about the mission of the Seeing Eye through 2 assemblies in April, and they will receive a certificate of sponsorship for a newborn Seeing Eye puppy for their donation. That's adorable. And also wonderful. But the PTO hosted luncheons at Gillette and Millington for Staff Appreciation Week last week. The central luncheon is scheduled for tomorrow. I believe it was postponed because of the testing, but not because of a lack of appreciation. The theme was "Thank you for helping us grow." And it is the PTO's privilege to recognize our teachers and staff at all 3 schools for the care and dedication they show to our students all year long. And then the PTO special grade level events, Field Day, and the Millington Book Fair are being planned for May and June, with the first 2 events, Environmental Day and Victorian Day, scheduled for this week. The PTO looks forward to sharing fun days, learning and connecting with the students through all of these events. And I think it's very nice to just be continuing to move more towards, the events that we had pre-COVID, back to the way that we used to do things. So that's wonderful news. Those are my
Great.
reports.
Okay. Any questions for Ann? Okay.
I do. I think there was one other thing we talked about in student achievement. We talked about taking a look at that criteria. I don't know if we were going to do it as a group or as a board.
We did, and thank you for mentioning. So the conversation on the health curriculum standards is not finished. It's on the schedule for the next meeting for the agenda. And Dr. Mucci and Dr. Jones were going to reach out and get a few sample lessons, to give us a view of how we're approaching at the different age levels. Good memory.
Thank you.
Okay. Matt?
Yes, thank you. The finance team met this past week. First thing on agenda, as everybody knows, is we're going to have a nice little budget presentation, a nice overview of exactly where we were, where we are, and where we're going. And we'll go over some of the numbers in very high level, but we'll obviously answer any questions that anybody has. So, and one nice thing that Dan, again, it keeps on bringing innovation to the board that I've seen is he put it up on the website with an audio. And who'd you hire to do the audio? So that was a nice little...
Walter
added-
Cronkite.
Oh, God, that'd be...
Hold on, I just lost myself here. So we have some... next thing that coming up is we have lots of projects going on. So we have on the agenda some awarding bids. They're in, the resolutions are on the agenda. Again, this is the Central Middle School and Millington bathroom projects and the fire alarm. The great news is that both of the winning bids came in under budget for what we expected. And so what that's gonna allow us to do is take that money and actually continue to upgrade our facilities, which is gonna be new sheds, or at least replacement or repair of sheds at Millington and Gillette, and hopefully, once we find a space, why my phone keeps on
Millington
turning
and
off?
Central, and then find a space at Gillette.
Oh, I thought it was finding a space at Central.
Oh, if,
Yeah, you're right,
Right.
okay. Sorry. No problem. So basically, all the jobs have come in under budget, we have some extra money, and even after we do those replacements, we'll probably still have some extra money to save for another rainy day, so that's wonderful. Maintenance contract, so every 5 years or so, we have a maintenance contract that goes out to bid. At this point, we are looking to stay in the same framework where we have a buildings and ground director, and we're gonna have a supervisor that's gonna be hired by the company that we hire, and then he's going to take care of the maintenance people. We've had discussions where we're gonna try to bring that job in-house, and we're gonna give one more shot out to, are we going with Richard? I already forgot.
we're still under review with
So
the
it's
two
under review.
contractors.
So with whomever wins, we're gonna give them one more shot, say, all right, you give us a supervisor and maintenance guys, and see if they can continue to keep our schools in the shape that they are, which they've been a wonderful upgrade over the last few months. So we wanna keep it in,
And that was in your original documentation 5 years ago, when you bid the contract.
Right.
You had a supervisor that was with the winning cleaning company, your management company, and after 4 months, that position was abolished. So for the past 4.5 years, there was no supervisor that was overseeing your day operation, your night operation, and things fell through the cracks. So we're going to reinstitute what you originally had 5 years ago and put that position back into the proposal.
feel free to keep on talking.
Matt's having technical
So many
difficulties.
technical- my son would be laughing at me right now. And one good piece of news is that Pritchard is really looking to try to get our business back. They've given us a supervisor on site for free for
Till
the
the
next
end
6
of the year.
weeks, till the end of the year. And we're gonna give them that opportunity to see what they can do with that position, and hopefully they can come flying through and help us continue to set up new policies and procedures, sign-offs, so things that have been missed because we didn't have an actual checklist of what to do is going to get done with this new supervisor. This is really crazy. I don't know what I have about 1/4 of an inch on my phone, and I don't know why, what's happening here.
Matt, I'm gonna pass to you, here.
Policy, oh, look, oh
Don't touch anything.
I know. I get yelled at when I go into the car and I touch buttons because I love to touch buttons.
It's not gonna
And I always do something wrong. All right, so policy 6145. This has to do with pay to play, right? Well, I don't have it
Yeah.
listed here, but it does. So we've always had a policy on the books that says if you qualify for reduced or free milk, there are opportunities or policies in place to help you financially for extracurricular activities. So we just want to be able to better advertise that, tell people if you have financial issues and you still want your child to participate, come to us.
Right.
We have an open door. I know, we've done a wonderful job of creating communication between the board and our school staff. We now need to continue that and move it towards the community. Tell them things that we have available to them. You know, grants, I know Force has grants, PTO has grants, I'm sure. We have opportunities for people that, if you are having hardship, if you still want your kids to participate, come talk to us. We have,
Oh,
now you're,
jeez.
I'm talking too much.
Paper, people,
Hey, I got it back.
paper.
No, I didn't. All right, I got it back. All right. In addition to that, with our new budget, we're gonna be instituting a cap of basically $600 for the year, per child, per family. That's the most you're gonna pay out of pocket for after school, at least definitely sports, and I believe we're still discussing as to what other extracurricular activities might be included in that.
Correct.
I know you brought up some wonderful ideas at the meeting, and we're still gonna be discussing exactly what it's gonna encompass. One small thing on the agenda is our lighting project. We're still continuing to work with a company to redo our lights, to be able to pay for new lights and use those savings to pay for that upgrade. And I guess we found a small little problem that we were using
PSE&G.
PSE&G, but it really needs to be JCP&L, and they're the ones providing us the electricity. So you're gonna see something on agenda that just is moving from one vendor to the other, because the guy that we're actually paying are the ones that are gonna be instituting this project and helping us pay for it.
We did the multi-purpose room a couple of weeks ago at Central. I don't know if you've been there,
No.
but it's
Central?
really, really, yeah, really, really nice. Yeah, if you're there, you know, kids are testing in that area now. It's nice, it's bright. You could see the spillage in the hallway. So once we finish our project, it's going to be a brand-new environment. And then obviously paint, trim is going to now be the next problem, because with bright lights,
Now
you're
you
gonna
can see everything that.
you can
the
see
room's
every
in.
flaw, every flaw in the wall, correct.
Exactly. And also on the agenda, we have a new, it's a feature that PNC Bank is going to be providing for us. Not for free, it's gonna cost a little bit of money, but it's gonna save us a lot of heartache and time value of money. As everybody knows, fraud is out there. People try to steal everyone's money. They also try to steal schools' money. So there is a project, it's a service called Positive Pay. So when we have a set of checks that we are issuing out to people, we are now going to give an Excel spreadsheet basically to PNC. Say, here's the check number, the dates, the amount, and who they're supposed to go to. So if somebody goes to an ATM and tries to swiggle with the name of the vendor name and change the name to somebody it shouldn't be, and tries to cash the check, PNC is able to catch it. And they're not going to let that guy cash the check. Now, at the end of the day, we get our money back anyway, but right now the way it works is PNC has to go investigate. It might take a couple of weeks. We have to foot the bill for whatever that might be. At the end of the year, if it's a big check, we could be in trouble. So it's worth the $27 or something like that is a month to use this new service. So basically, the risk of fraud is going to be drastically reduced.
A lot is happening from mobile phone deposits. People open a fake account. They don't have to go to the bank anymore. They have the mobile phone deposit, shoot the picture. We're putting an intermediate step in there now. When that picture gets snapped now, it's going to go to our Positive Pay to say, okay, who's the payee? Well, there's a problem here. We will not cash. Please come into the bank to see us, as opposed in the old day without Positive Pay, write out the name, switch it, click it, deposit it, tomorrow withdraw it, close the bank account, and then the bank's out the money, and then indirectly our service fees and our fees are going to increase. So for the minimal amount per month, we think this is a good process to have in place moving forward, because technology keeps moving. We just want to keep up with it in the banking industry.
As you touched on earlier, we had an emergency busing issue. There were additional fees that we had to bear, but per our contract, we will be reimbursed.
Correct.
And I know that first student has already come back and has gotten another bus or two, I believe.
Correct.
To replace it, so what we thought was going to be till the end of the year is now, at least that stopgap has been in place, and eventually those funds will be paid on the behalf of us by first student. I don't know what the timeframe is, but it's going to come back to us.
We called the
bond.
bonding company to exercise our right, because the new bus route, the temporary route we received was 1.5 higher than what we were paying. So then we notified first student that they're responsible for the 0.5. They notified their attorney. Miraculously, within 72 hours, we had a bus driver and a bus that started today. So that bus came from another school district, because there's no bus drivers out there. So, you know, we've exercised it, working in conjunction with Watchung Hills Regional, because it's a tiered route between Watchung Hills and Long Hill. So it really worked out well for us. We both have transportation. Today was the first day that the bus came back after a week of absent. So we're hoping from now to the end of the year, First Student provides the services that we're paying for.
And on that same line of busing, we're also going to be recommending the purchase of a software package called TransFinder Plus. The software we're currently using is outdated. It is labor intensive. It takes a lot of work in the beginning of the year. So this new software will be replacing that. It's going to cost a nice bit of money up front, but then we get to use it. I forget what the contract is, but it's going to pay for itself by the less number of hours and heartache that whoever's gonna be in that position next year will have to just set up those routes. So we definitely recommend voting for that.
And then just part of onboarding is their training will be routing our students, which is a big plus for us. That's what they do. And, you know, we follow the buses at times and we're like, wow, the bus went there, to there, to there, and you could have just went this way, it would have been a little more efficient. It's difficult with a lot of students, but we think we could just become a little more efficient to cut 2 or 3 minutes off to make child A and B have a little better experience getting to and from school. That is our ultimate goal, and to have some balance on these buses with numbers, to really do the right thing for all of our courtesy riders, and it's our biggest issue we have right now. We are on top of it, and we're trying to put some mechanisms in place to improve, and that's our goal.
No child is on the bus longer than 45 minutes, right?
I would
Or
say, when we had to go from 5, when we had to decrease to 1 bus, we're probably 52 to 55
But
minutes.
that was an exception,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Right. So we're hoping if we still keep those numbers with new software and more efficient routing, we could have those same amount of students on the bus, but do it more efficiently going through different streets. And then, you know, this town, it's a little difficult with all of the manhole changes, all the detours, all the water. So every morning, my phone's blowing up saying, this is a detour, that's a detour. And as President Case had said, that we are notifying parents as soon as we find out. And in cases, we are not getting a call until 9:30 to tell us that the bus did not come today. And that is totally unacceptable. So our students throughout the community waiting on bus stops, mom and dad going to work, thinking their child got on the bus, only to find out there was no bus. So for the past 2 weeks, we've been riding buses, myself included, going to bus stops, making sure that they are following the letter of the law as it pertains to our contract.
We also are going to be increasing the number of hours for Mark Prusina. I'm sure Alex will be able to tell you the amount of work that he's doing, and the contract we currently have is just not enough. So it's only 5 hours, but it's going to be well worth it. The addition of Mark and Dan, thank you, Ann, has been instrumental in keeping us going forward. So it's wonderful having them on board. And lastly, on our agenda, you'll see lots of resolutions for basically fixed asset services. Basically, there's several annual service renewals on the agenda, and Dan obviously has reviewed them all, and we will recommend that we say yes to the resolutions. All right. Thank you for the technical help.
For what it was worth. Any questions for Matt? So I have a question with the pay to play. All of my years on the board, we keep saying that we would help people, but do we have a process? Is there a form people fill out? Is there a reason why we can't put a form on the website? Because it seems like it would be, you know, people wouldn't be as willing to just send an email like, "Dear Mr. Borgo, I need help to pay for this. How do I do that?" Whereas if there was like a process in place, like a form that at least went out to parents before the season, or if we could target the free and reduced lunch students, is that an option, Dan, or do we have?
I think we could actually take our policy, put it online. We could highlight and bold exactly where it is and put a little banner across the top, maybe the week before all these signups. And then to take it one step further, I could talk to Michael over at Central and say, once you get your rosters or your tryout rosters, here is the list, keep it confidential, and let these individuals know that there is no fee for child A, B, C, or D, and that should not have effect on them participating. So we could put stopgaps in place prior to the start of the season, so mom and dad know that if their son or daughter make the team, there'll be no cost associated with that sport or activity.
I mean,
Because has anybody reached out to you this year?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe
Well,
one.
it reached out for a reduced fee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, well, maybe I referred it to you. They didn't come directly
Okay,
to you.
Okay, so maybe one.
One.
I feel like there's probably more out there.
I'm wondering,
I
Karen,
just wanted to ask, it's not only those that get free and reduced lunch. I mean, there are other people that could be having a hardship, like we went through that when people were laid off. I mean, and they had a hardship. They weren't on free and reduced lunch, but it was a hardship for the families. So that's not the only criteria, right? I mean,
Our policies,
I don't remember it.
Reduced
off-
I have
The
a,
policy, I believe, does state
Yeah.
free use only.
Because
I'm not saying that's our only option, but I believe just the way it's written.
Okay, well then that is, because I know that's not the way it's practiced. I mean, I can tell you this, if like, I mean, this is going back years, there were students in my son's class and we paid for their 8th grade trip. You know, and they weren't on free and reduced lunch. I mean, so we obviously have to look at that.
Okay.
Right, it clearly states that it's for the free or reduced, and then it says a parent or guardian who is denied an exemption in whole or in part may appeal to the Board of Ed within 10 days of receiving a written decision. So if someone makes a request that they just were laid off of their job, and then we make a decision, and they don't like our decision, then they have an appeal process of 10 days. But we do have another mechanism in addition to free and reduced that would be on an item-for-item basis that we would make a decision on.
Okay, we Ann and then Melissa. Yeah.
Dan, do people apply for free and reduced lunch every year?
Yes.
So I wonder if with that application, we can add a line that says, please note that if you qualify for free and reduced lunch, you also qualify for assistance with student fees. And then this way, at least in a year, like, you know, when you're filling out the form, or does the notification of qualifying for free and reduced lunch come from us, or does it come from the state?
It actually comes in English and Spanish from the state. We then
Okay.
transpose it onto our letterhead, of which we may just take a little piece of paper, clip it on top
Yeah.
and send it.
That might be,
We're finding that snail mail is more effective than email when
Yeah.
we're sending all that out. So that would be, again,
Yeah.
it's not a hard fix.
Okay,
Yeah.
Melissa?
My concern is, though, that we have kids not trying out for these things because their parents aren't even aware that there is this appeal process. So I it's unrealistic, I think, to expect parents as a board, for us to expect parents that they're going to actually go online and review our policies. Like, we all sometimes struggle to make sure we make our policies as clear as possible. So I think when any notification for a tryout goes out, it needs to specifically say on the tryout notice that if you get free and reduced lunch, you know, the fee is waived, and also, or if you are suffering some other financial hardship, please contact the business administrator's office to address that, because I'm sure there are kids whose parents don't even let them try out because they know that they're not going to be able
That's
to.
a great idea.
Yeah. Thank
Was there a way you can send a letter out to them every year? To a
I
list
think-
of,
I
you
think-
guys qualified, just an FYI.
We did send a letter this year, so
So
we
you can-
started something called Helping Hands, and we identified a number of things that the district can provide, and that was directly sent via hard copy and email to all of the families who had qualified for free and reduced lunch. And we identified a number of things, including assistance with school supplies, and that same group is doing a backpack drive for the fall, so that when we start out the school year again over the summer, then everybody has all of their backpacks ready with everything that's required for that grade level. And we did get some response from that, and identified in there as well that the pay-to-play was waived.
I think, I think if I work with Michael over at Central to devise some strategies on how to, not the free and reduced parents, but those gray area parents that may have some financial hardship that don't fall into that group, how do we capture those and make those individuals aware that they should not make a determination on their son or daughter playing a sport for the ability to pay, because we
Yes.
could provide that service. So I'll speak to him, and we got to figure out something that we could do internally, whether it be on, I guess, the beginning of school year when you fill out all your HSA, if you put it in there, and then again, revisit it before every season, have the coach announce prior to the tryout, and it's, to get that message to mom and dad is gonna be our goal. But I
Yeah.
think it's a worthwhile cause, and we'll do everything that we can do to get that message out.
Because I think if they're getting some notices in the beginning of the year, you know, parents get so
forget, yeah,
overwhelmed at the start of the year that,
Speaking from
and
experience.
speaking from experience, and with notices that go out, it just might slip their minds. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Dan, just to, could you clarify for the board, the plan or the hope with the pay-to-play fees moving forward? Because I know we have a plan in place for next year, but in terms of maybe a 5-year plan, what is the thought?
I would hope that whoever's sitting here, that I'm talking strictly my philosophy, that this should be something that the Board of Education would bear that cost of all of this expense. It's an extension in my eyes of curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular of the classroom. My goal would be, we're at 200 now, if we could go to 100 in the 23-24 and get it down to 0 at the end. And I mean 100 per season or 300, so it would be 600 max, 300 max, hopefully down to 0 over the course of the next couple of years. And I think with the budget, the way I see it, we're talking about really low-hanging fruit to implement something like this. It would not impact any of our curricular, our textbooks, our staffing, and this should be a pretty easy fix. If that's just the way the superintendent and the Board of Education, if they want to go in that direction, cost should not impede that decision.
Okay,
Thank you, Dan. Okay, Tom?
I have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Alex?
Thank you very much, Madam President. On May 6th, the Building and Ground Committee met, and honestly, it was probably one of the most robust conversations that we've had all year, so I thank very much Dr. Mucci for attending, my board colleagues Matt DiGiorgio and Karen Nyquist. Mark Persina led most of the conversation, and Adele Valentin was also present to help with some of the details. The first topic that we discussed were the committee goals for the year. We've identified.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
Thanks, that's a lot better here. The first topic that we discussed were the building and grounds goals for the year, and we identified 3, and I'm just going to kind of summarize them. Preparing a basic infrastructure study, continuing to work with finance and the administration to tackle these maintenance items, so long as, they're budgetarily available to us, and developing a job description for, a prospective future building and grounds supervisor. Mr. Persina kind of caught us up on some of the existing projects that are happening throughout the district, and I'm just going to go very quickly through the laundry list of items. Phase 3 of the window project, there's approximately 160 windows to be repaired. There's I believe a contract has a purchase order. The contractor has the purchase order now, and they're doing field visits to do measurements and confirmations. The relighting, as was mentioned, at Central School Multipurpose Room was, I believe, planned to be completed this week. Patching and repainting at Millington, something that we've had 3 attempts at with contractors not showing up, was finally completed. He was very enthusiastic about that. I'm speaking of Mark. One of the bigger items that was recently tackled, there were, part of the HVAC system at Millington has exhaust fans, and there's 71 of them in the school. 32 of them were recently repaired to make sure that there's appropriate air balancing and negative pressure, so that you have air conditioning or heating being pushed out through vents. This is kind of the motorized fan system to suck it back out into the environment. And this kind of keeps an airflow going within the school building. That's my layman's understanding of all this, but that was a fairly significant undertaking, repairing those fans. There's a few minor things that I'm going to kind of skip over in the interest of time, because I know budget's an important priority. But, little things like remembering to dig out a trench and install a conduit, which is just basically a pipe, underneath the driveway in Gillette that connects the front of the school to the signage and the light pole out front. That was something that had been taken care of before the repaving, to allow us the opportunity to potentially put lighting or electric feed between those two, which makes a lot of sense. Something that currently doesn't exist was a detail that was addressed. Gillette School parking lot, as I mentioned, was resurfaced. That was completed. The custodial and maintenance contracts are currently under review. The gym floor refinishing is slated for August 2022, but there's some prep work currently being done, reviewing the plans with physical education teachers to make sure that there's proper lines and markings on the floor. Building relighting project is something that we're hoping to tackle in the spring of 2022. And last but not least, Millington Art Room has a sink replacement that will soon be done. It's a very important item, apparently. There are minor pest management issues that need to be addressed. There was a report of mining bees popping up in the softball field in Millington. There are a few ants that continue to plague the board offices. We have an integrated pest management contract. I believe that might be one of the items on the agenda today. So, you know, please support that. That's an important aspect of maintenance. And, you know, to that point, there's a few items on our resolutions today that I want to encourage you to support and pay attention to. Notably, resolution number 19, I believe, is for the award of the contract for the staff bathroom, I always have a tough time pronouncing laboratories. Millington and Central are going to have renovated staff laboratory repairs.
Just a bathroom.
Resolution number 20, awards contract for the fire alarm system. But the most important one, I think, is 41, which is actually a personnel item. I wasn't aware of the fact that Mark was actually working on a reduced hour schedule.
I know, you can't
And
tell.
I could not believe it when this came across. He does an amazing job. He does a full-time job under reduced hours. His commitment is amazing. One of the most comforting things that I heard during this meeting actually came at the end, where he noted to us that he's done countless number of tours with contractors through our schools, and more than one contractor has commented to him that touring Millington School in particular was one of the most positive elementary schools they'd ever seen or ever been a part of. And I think that kind of speaks greatly to the amount of commitment that the administration and the teachers and the students all display on a daily basis. And so I encourage you, with respect to his, the resolution that pertains to him. Obviously, he's working super hard. Again, I cannot believe he's not working like overtime, let alone, just a regular full-time schedule with the amount that he's accomplished so far. So I encourage you to support that. And lastly, the resolution, I think number 2 it is, where we have to support the budget. In that is a very important transfer of funds with respect to the summer projects for capital improvement, the staff laboratories, the parking lot renovation for Millington, fire alarm replacement. These are projects that are long overdue, incredibly important for our continued facilities investment, and I encourage you to support that as well. And thank you to the board members who really contributed a lot to our last meeting. It was a very promising conversation too.
I just wanted to say one thing. Alex mentioned that Millington, all the door frames and, have been fixed, painted, and Mark, that was like, he was fixated on this. He says, I can't walk in there and see all these chips and marks and scrapes. I just don't like it. I just don't like it. He was dedicated. That was his baby. I mean, he's so focused on getting everything right. I mean, he's so dedicated. He's just amazing. He really is.
One last item I forgot to mention. We had some general discussion about what's called the long-range facilities plan. And, we talked in general about the steps that we're going to take in order to kind of move that forward over the next few months as well. Nothing with like hard dates yet, but, that's an important priority for the committee as well.
Okay.
Sorry for the long report.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Melissa.
All right, well, on Thursday, May 5th, at the Watchung Hills Regional High School, the Learning Commons in particular, they had where all the sending districts met to discuss the transition to high school for the special education community coming from Central. And that was on May 5th. If you have any questions about that, you can go to email transitionprogramming@whrhs.org, or you can shoot an email to our Director of Special Services, Jerry Colon, at gcolon@longhill.org. Nothing further.
Questions?
Okay, on Tuesday, May 3rd, at 2 p.m., the Community Relations Committee met. It was Dr. Mucci, Danielle Daly, Tom Grosskopf, and myself. The first thing we discussed was the extensive amount of activities that we have at the end of the year and how we really want to make sure that we communicate with parents and the community, all the good stuff that's going on. And this kind of goes in line with what Ann was saying about how the PTO has worked tirelessly to get things back in the building, as well as the administration and the staff that are doing things like concerts, et cetera. Just a snapshot of what's going on in the months of May and June. You have the kindergarten concert that was last week. The Sonnet Man's coming, Victorian Day, Environmental Day, the 8th grade tie-dye event, International Day, Field Day for all 3 schools, 5th grade concert, a Colonial Day, Central Band and Chorus concert, 8th grade trip, Millington choir concert, 1st grade concert, Science Fair, Medieval Day, kindergarten graduation, 8th grade dance, 5th grade picnic, and 8th grade breakfast, and 8th grade moving up ceremony. So there you go. Got a lot going on, and we're, Long Hill's back.
And you're gonna be at every one of those events.
Yes, I am. No, I will be at a few of them. Actually, I'm making my husband go to Science Day. But however, one of the things that we discussed was also how can we communicate that? And one of the things, just kind of a fun way, using a hashtag that represents our district and our community. So going forward, the district's going to use hashtag Long Hill Pride to kind of, as a district, and to promote all the great activities that are going on. And then we also in line with what Ann Butler said, we also discussed the state standards for health curriculum. Really, Dr. Mucci, the coffee you did the day after our meeting was really excellent. And then I really liked that after that meeting, you kind of did a follow-up email out to the community. So people who weren't there, they were given, not to the community, to parents, they were given the tools that they can utilize to find the information. And hopefully some questions were answered, and hopefully if there are more, people feel comfortable coming. Because what was really commendable about that was that we're very open and upfront. I think the plan in place, parents can feel confident that we're not doing things that are too, I liked your term, precocious for the children. And I'm very proud of how we've been handling this situation. And I will defer to other people to discuss it further. The second part of my speech is for Force. The Long Hill Education Foundation held our first Family Fun Day event. We raised approximately $4,000. It was a really wonderful day. We had absolutely gorgeous weather, and we wanted to thank the sponsors and guests for supporting Long Hill schools. And our next meeting is Wednesday, May 18th at 8 p.m. via Zoom. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd
Any
like to say to Katie-
questions?
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
I'd like to say to Katie, that was actually one of the most fun days I've had in memory, so excellent job to,
Well, there were a lot of people put in a lot of work for that.
I
So
know it was definitely reflected. It was great to be there. Thank you.
I'm glad.
And
I will just echo with what Katie was saying, that I think as an 8th grade parent, Central Middle School has been doing a phenomenal job of communicating and organizing all those dates for the parents multiple times. They really understand the reminders. Did you get this in time? It's been a pleasure, honestly, because you have to order a t-shirt, you have to order a yearbook, you have to send in a baby photo, and the reminders from their main office have been much appreciated.
Just real quick, Dr. Mucci, do you know, you said the coffee was well attended?
Yeah.
Do you know approximately how many people showed up?
So I might be getting my numbers mixed up. I want to say, I'm thinking about the screen and how full it was. Yeah, we were, you were?
I think 23.
23.
Really?
I almost said 32, so
Yeah.
I have my numbers reversed. Yeah, 23, and then we also have it up online, and it's been getting views, which is great.
Thank you.
okay, superintendent's report.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I'm so proud to serve on the board committees and appreciate all the work that each committee does and the thorough manner in which you share out that work with the community.
It certainly makes compiling the superintendent update much easier because we've hit so many highlights of what's happening, so thank you. We are full of excitement for all of our end-of-the-year activities. We are grateful to the PTO for facilitating celebrations and learning experiences such as those that have been mentioned in the committee reports for our students. We also want to say that the lunch that was provided at each of the schools from the PTO, thank you for helping us grow. Everyone went home saying that they did not have to think about making dinner because it was such a filling and lovely luncheon and much appreciated by the faculty and staff. We are mindful of the recent uptick of COVID cases in our district. Fortunately, the cases have not been incredibly debilitating, and we're seeing students get back to school sooner. And the symptoms are really related to scratchy, sore throats, unpleasantness, but it's a little different, and it's communicating between groups quickly. So in the last 2 weeks, we have had 25 new confirmed cases of COVID in the district. And the breakdown is as follows: 8 cases at Gillette, 9 at Millington, and 8 at Central. Central School remains in outbreak status, which means that we have at least 3 cases that were connected where transmission occurred in school or when the individuals were together outside of school. Today, the New Jersey Department of Education issued a broadcast memo advising that if a region is in orange or high transmission rate, the district should consult with local health department to consider the implementation of additional virus mitigation efforts. Our region remains in the moderate transmission rate. We are hopeful that we can finish this school year in an extremely healthy manner and that this, like a similar uptick that we had, will dissipate quickly. Of course, one of the ways families can assist us with this effort is to keep your children home when they're not feeling well. Calendar reminder, the last 3 days of school, Friday, June 17th, Monday, June 20th, and Tuesday, June 21st, are all early dismissal days, and we have some wonderful activities planned for our faculty in the afternoon on those days to really underscore what a wonderful year it has been because of their work. Thank you to everyone who volunteered for the Preschool Advisory Committee and the District Green Team. Each will have kickoff meetings later this month. If you're interested in serving on either committee and missed the sign up, just email me directly and I will get you included on the committee. These meetings are open to the public. They will be recorded and posted on our website. Tonight is a very exciting meeting as I have the honor of presenting to the board the renewal of our employees for the 2022-2023 school year, which includes a recommendation of tenure for 6 individuals who are listed on motion 51. Shannon Butler, Nina Coulter, Larissa Greco, Tracy Pierce, and Caitlin Skolnick represent the very best of Long Hill. They are exceptional, dedicated educators, and they all demonstrated a commitment to the community, which extends well beyond their day-to-day professional duties. We also have a retirement on the agenda, Ms. Skrobats, and that's noted in motion 43. Ms. Skrobats is a caring educator who has offered dedicated service to the students of Central Middle School for 15 years. Congratulations to Ms. Skrobats and best wishes in her retirement. We will acknowledge our retirees, thankfully only 2 so far, at the June board meeting so that the board can properly recognize them and give them a gift for their service. While the nationwide teacher shortage is creating challenges to fill positions in many districts, Long Hill is fortunate to have high-quality applicants for open positions, and we do not foresee any difficulty or any unfilled positions in the upcoming school year. The district is once again offering the Summer Institute for the first few weeks of summer vacation. The Institute is intended to reinforce essential grade level competencies in reading and math. In addition, students receive lessons to develop social and emotional skills. We have additional spaces for this free program, which is administered through our ESSER funding. So Ms. Backer will be sending a communication out to families by the end of the week explaining how they may seek entry into this program for their child. This is my first opportunity in the district to be a part of the budget development and presentation from the start of the process. I am thankful to the Finance Committee and Mr. Borgo for developing a budget for next school year that positions us so well for continual educational and facilities improvement. Mr. Borgo made a recording of the presentation and it is available on our website, and it already received over 80 views. I believe this demonstrates the strong interest our community has in understanding and supporting our efforts to provide the best educational opportunities for all students. So thank you.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Mucci? Okey dokey. Dun, 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 dun.
It's anticlimactic after all the reports. What we'll do is we'll refer to our blue document that has been up online with an audio, and it's actually doing very well online with the people that are viewing it. But at first, I'd like to thank all the board members and Dr. Mucci for all their hard work throughout the school year, and a special thanks to our Finance Committee, Mr. DeGiorgio, who's the chair of our Finance Committee, Ms. Ruvalo, Mrs. Butler, and Mrs. Case. And you're an integral part of that process, and it's an all-inclusive process, so we're really, really, excited about everything that has gone on. The page numbers are up in the upper left-hand corner in a red box. We'll go to page 3, which goes over our enrollment, our actual enrollments from 2018-19 through a projection of 22-23. As you can see, our pre-COVID numbers were between 850 and 900 students. During the COVID year, we went down to 797, and our projection appears that we'll be vaulting up to the 829. This is 828. It's very early in the year to grab numbers. We should be about 840 by the time school would open in September. It's also noted that just looking at our teaching staff from 2018-19, we had 121 teachers to a projected 129 teachers in 2022-23. So 18-19, 121, 2022-23, 129. So sometimes people ask, well, if you had extra or we had this or that in lieu of giving teachers all their negotiated contract agreements, we see, or the Board of Ed saw a need to add staffing in specific areas. We were able to do that, and I speak only for this year, within our 2% cap, in which we added 1.5 teachers from last year to next school year. So that is part of our process. Just a little side note, our special ed tuition looks like it's decreasing. Not all of our evaluations have been done this early in the season, so I've taken an actual number, what we have at this point in time, and with all the IEPs being concluded over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we anticipate that number of 117 to increase. Moving on to our operating expense.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
For that special ed number?
Yes.
Does that include, that is for self-contained or sent out of district?
That's only self-contained in our district here.
Okay, so
Yes.
if someone's in a class with,
If someone is
an inclusion?
if someone is in an out-of-district placement, that's not included. All other students that are under our roof is included in that number.
Okay, but that 117 is basically students with IEPs?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
just
Yep.
trying
Yep.
to.
Yep.
And not 504s?
No. Oh,
I
any
think
oth-
maybe we should save questions to the very end, so let Dan get through things. So just jot your notes down and we'll do questions at the end.
Sure,
Sorry about that.
whatever's easiest. We will now go to our operating expense, which is page 5. And this is just our spending program by category of where all $21 million is being spent. Just to highlight, our regular program instruction makes up $5 million of that. So that's approximately almost 25% of all dollars being spent is categorized under regular program instruction. And just as an aside, regular program instruction includes salaries of regular ed teachers in kindergarten through 8th grade, substitutes, class coverage costs, regular home and instruction, instructional staff travel, instructional supplies, textbooks, and curriculum items. So there's a lot of dollars that go into that. You could see all of your cost centers, and these are all of the state-approved cost centers. And I get the key to any budget is what you have on your left side, your expenses, you must have on your right side, which are your revenues. So they always have to balance. And once the budget is established, in its simplest term, it's a checkbook that we must manage with $21,800,000 there, and we must do our obligation and our due diligence to make sure we spend that money in the best possible way. We flip over to page 6, which is our sources of revenues, meaning we've identified all the expenses we have needed to fund their school district for the following year. This will now show us all of our revenues. And in any suburban district in New Jersey, your number one revenue is going to be tax levy. And that's our community members' tax bill. You will see in a tax bill in an instance such as Long Hill, you're going to have your local K-8 taxes, you're going to have your regional tax, you're going to have your county tax, you may have some open space tax, and a library tax, depending on your community. And I would say the public school in any town in the state of New Jersey probably make up 65 to 75% of your taxes. So when you're looking at items, your biggest tax bill out of all the taxes I've identified are your school tax. So it's important for us as a group to spend those dollars wisely and really preserve the integrity of what we're trying to do. Although a budget is enacted 18 months in advance, you know, we're trying to predict what's going to happen next May and June. Who knows what the price of gas is going to be? Who knows what transportation is going to be? So we have to make some assumptions based on what we know today, and that's very, very important. As you could see in our source of revenues, fund balance. Those are dollars that we've accumulated from prior year budgets that we taxed the community for that now we're giving back as tax relief. The key to using fund balance is that you want that number to be pretty consistent from year over year over year. You don't want to have $1 million and $200,000 because then you have to make up that $800,000 differential. Fund balance I consider as a revenue such as state aid and taxation. If you're going to use a number in the $300,000 range, you must be able to produce that same number for the next 3 or 4 years going forward. Otherwise, you're going to have a tax spike because we cannot find $300,000 to plug in as a revenue. That is very, very important. So in the next year, if it's me or if it's someone else, make sure you go to your fund balance to make sure that number remains fairly constant and that number is something that we can live with as a board in future years. All of our other revenues are pretty self-explanatory. We have rents and miscellaneous income. Tuition is our preschool tuition. Withdraw from capital reserve. Those are the monies that we've accumulated from prior years that we put in one of our buckets to do infrastructure or capital projects. This is not added to your tax levy. We've already taxed the community for these dollars. This is money that was not spent. We've earmarked it for another purpose. We're using that money to fund it. So as Mr. DeJamos has stated in our budget resolution, we're showing a transfer out of capital reserve. So we're going to take that million, has no effect on the tax levy, to do the restrooms, to do the sheds, to do the paving. So that's a good thing to have. You always want to try to replenish your cap reserve. So if we spent $1 million this year, hopefully at the end of the year, we could replenish $1 million back. So that'll live on forever or for as long as we're producing budgets. Another very important point. Our sources of revenue, just a pie chart, page 7, which shows you the biggest funding source, which is the orange, is $17 million, which is our local tax levy. Our debt service tax levy are when we did the bonds for the additions to the buildings. That is, we've refunded those to a lower interest rate, and now as you look as interest rates skyrocketing, we are in really good position from now until the end of the life of that mortgage because we may not see those rates again. We have our state aid, our federal aid, our fund balance, our rents and miscellaneous income, our transportation fees for courtesy busing, and then any interest we reserved on, any interest we earned on our capital reserve accounts.
I mean, $150 interest.
Yeah, exactly. But statutorily, we have to identify it, so that's why we put it there. Matt, if you want to talk maybe about page 8.
Yes. Again, I just want to, I've been on the board for 8-9 years, and I just want to let you know, I've learned more in this past year than I have in my last few years, and it's not just that the people before us were no good, but your communication and openness and you're willing to teach is just greatly, greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
It almost wants me to make me stay for another 3 years, but that's not gonna
Well, we have still time, we have
still have
time for
plenty of
that.
time. Just big picture is looking at our operating expenses. I mean, salary, everyone talks about you have a $20 million budget. I mean, that sounds wonderful. It's a ton of money. It's coming from our pockets and property tax. But if you just take the two biggest expenses, salaries and benefits, 75% of your money is already gone. And not gone, previously earmarked. We have contracts, we have insurance we have to pay. So our big giant budget, not as big as everyone really thinks it is. At the end of the day, if you take those two pieces, you add in maintenance and operations, which you have to have because we have 3 schools, transportation, you have to get your kids to and from school, and then special education, which this number is outplacement.
Out of district
Okay.
placements.
You're left with 6%. So think about that. You have $100,000 at home to spend in your budget. You wake up in the morning, you have $6,000 left. I mean, just think about that. It's not a lot of money to spend, and this is what I'm talking about, is discretionary. The budget always starts as to, Dr. Mucci goes to the principal, says, give me your wish list. She has 3 people, they go to their teachers, they give her their wish list. Then you have to take that wish list and say, okay, what is feasible? And at the end of the day, we have 6% to be able to make our own decisions. So one thing I highly recommend, Kim and Ann, is every member of this board should be a part of the finance committee, at least for 1 year. I remember Melissa's eyes when I first saw her when she came to her first meeting. She was like, "Woo! What the heck?" It is eye-opening, and it's good to learn. Unfortunately, this basically makes everything up. This is what makes our schools open and makes our decisions sometimes. Everybody should have a very good understanding of what takes place. And if you don't, Dan says, ask. That's what we're here for. If you don't understand something, ask the questions. We will answer it for you to our best ability. So again, just think about 6%. It's not that much. At the end of the day, it's a nice chunk of money, but you have 3 schools, you have supplies, and you have your rainy day fund that you have to fund. Because if we didn't save the money over the last few years, the bathrooms would never get redone. Or 71 ventilator fans might have not gotten fixed. So just think about when you're at home and you do your own budget. Do you spend every single dime? Well, some people might, but hopefully you have to plan for the future. You have to have a rainy day. So that's it. I've spoken enough tonight.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, thank you again, Dan. Thank you. It's been
Yeah,
an absolutely
we'll
wonderful pleasure working.
We'll proceed on to page 9. And I think part of the strategy that some of our bids came in lower than anticipated is we beat everybody to the market. I mean, we're awarding tonight. It's not in the bid process. We are awarding to the lowest responsible bidder. A lot of our colleagues may be going out now and awarding in June, and the closer you get to the finish line at the end of the school year, the higher the price. So we pushed extremely hard on our architects to get done what we've needed. Everyone accommodated us. We did the right thing. We opened in a timely fashion, had the bids reviewed by our school attorney. Everything looks good. We have alternates with each bid, which means we bid a base bid and then an alternate. The floors in the bathrooms, we couldn't jackhammer them up. We just wouldn't get them open. So we're going to go with a nice epoxy on top. That is the one alternate for the bathrooms. And the alternates for the fire alarm system is our fire marshal locally wanted some more sensors above the drop ceilings all throughout the school. That was his recommendation. We accommodated the fire marshal and the township, so we're doing that also. So we had a base bid with alternates. We're awarding both the base and the alternate for both bids, and we'll hopefully get contracts signed this week. And our goal is to get this stuff done over the summer, including the Millington parking lot, which would be an extension also in the front area. So, you know, we're really excited about where we're going and, you know, where we've been. It's been a whirlwind journey. I mean, we're producing items and getting work done. And a lot of times, you know, even in your own home, if you change your water heater, no one knows you changed your water heater from the outside. Oh, you didn't do siding or gutters? No, but you need hot water. So a lot of the things we're doing in the schools are behind the walls, are things a lot of people don't see. But the quality and the environment of education is getting much improved, from temperature controls to lighting to cleanliness to all of those areas that just needed a little TLC. And that's what we're identifying. We've worked as a team together. I mean, Dr. Mucci just lets me go. I mean, you know, she knows how I am, she knows my personality, and I think that's why we're so effective together. And it really is a credit to everyone here, and especially to Ann, because I told her, you know, I won't come out for many people to come out and work. I was happily retired, so, you know, I received her phone call, and it's a great place. I think whoever we pass the torch to in the future, they're gonna be coming in, and they're gonna have to hit the ground running, and that's what we wanna do.
No rush on that.
The big thing here is, you know, all of these numbers, when you really put it into our computer, what does that mean to the tax levy? And I think the important thing is our 2%, which is on page 10, our 2% of our tax levy is a $348,000 increase. Since we were proactive, and if you toggle between page 10 and 11, you'll see our actual increase is $263,000. The reason for that is that we refinanced our long-term bonds, and we're able to decrease our taxes due to a lower tax rate. Long-term debt just gets layered on top of your local annual tax levy every year. So if you can manipulate that number lower, it's going to have a nice effect on the tax levy. So when you look at it, we have a net $263,000 increase in taxes. The increase for the year is $80, and that's on a house assessed for $560,000. I just want to caution everyone, on top of that, you have your Watch on Hills Regional, which is going to layer on top of that. So your total school tax is both our $80 plus whatever Watch on Hills portion for our community would be. So that's a good thing. If the newspaper is listening, because they're concerned with two numbers, the 2002 rate was 1.0064. The 2023 rate is 1.0207. That's the tax rate per hundredths, and that's what they're really concerned about. So she usually emails me the next day, so hopefully we'll alleviate that email. Page 12, which is
Dan, before you
Tom, can you save it till the end, because it
Absolutely.
I think other people might be wanting to ask the same thing, so let's just save it to the end.
Let's do that.
Page 12, very important chart, and that is a 15-year historical tax levy. And I've really shaded the green area. The green area is what you like to see is a nice subtle wave in the 1.75 to 2.25 range. Unless we're opening a school, we're adding teachers, your tax rate shouldn't fluctuate 3%, 5%, 7%, down to 1%, down to a decrease. You want a nice subtle bell curve in that green area. So going into the future, if the population is remaining constant, there's no legal judgments against you, there's no increase or spike in population, we should be right in that green level. And that's just another point to keep in the back of your brain when this happens in future years. If you're not in that range, the question is why? What has happened? Well, we had a new apartment complex come into town, we have 112 more students. Okay, understandable. But if everything's remaining constant, unless we lost state aid, we should be right in that green area. So that's very, very important to remember. And, you know, as I had said, anybody have a question, dborgo@longhill.org. You can call, you can email, and I'll email you right back with any question that you'd like answered. It's up on our website. It's very easy to access. You would just click on it. It's about 13 to 14 minutes. It goes a little more in detail on every slide and what we're doing and how we are doing it. But I'm very proud to present this budget to the district. I think it's a great spending plan for the 22-23 school year, and I hope the full board would endorse that spending plan. So thank you very much, Ann. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Tom.
Okay, thank you. Going back to pages 10 and 11,
Yes.
please help my fuzzy little head. When I look at number 10, you say our 2% tax levy, and you have the 348 number. And then you talk about tax levy increase, which you know to be 2% from your next chart, as a 263 number.
Correct.
How do they correlate?
Okay,
How can you say this is 2%, this is 2%, and the numbers don't agree?
okay. Our local tax levy for our local school budget is able to go up 2%.
Yes.
That is represented in our $348,000, which is reflected on page 10. Our debt service is a long-term payment that we have to make every school year in an amount of X. Since we refinanced our bonds, our school payment for tax levy regarding the bonds was X minus, I think we saved $80,000, so it was $80,000 less. So we started with a tax levy of 343. Our tax levy for debt service is here. That got reduced by 83,000, so we're asking for less aggregate money. So our increase has now decreased by the amount of money we saved by refinancing our debt.
But is it not still a 2% ask?
It's a 2% ask on the current expense side, correct, yes.
Okay.
On the current expense side, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In aggregate, it's less than 2%, but the ask for this
Separate
is
debt.
2%, yes, correct.
Thank you.
Do you have a question, Ann?
So what you're saying to Tom is we're doing the 2%, but then the debt services is lower than what we had done last year, which is why in total, it's not the full 2%.
Correct.
Because two numbers getting added together. One is 2% and one is less than the debt service was.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Correct. When we're asking for our, you'll see it in resolution, I guess, number 2, is it?
Yeah.
When you're asking for our, on page 5, when you're asking for our general fund, that's 2%. But when you go over to your debt service now, we're asking for $83,000 less than we asked in the prior year, so that's where we're pulling that 2% less 83,000. But the ask is 2% on the general expense side.
Generally speaking, every single year, your debt service number doesn't change.
It depends how you structure your
Right.
debt, but it should
always
remain
has.
constant,
So in
correct.
this particular year, that extra
Yeah.
layer is thinner by
Correct.
80,000. So that's why you're.
There's a
like you said,
benefit to
it's
the
2%.
taxpayer that we finance.
Exactly.
the-
Which is
Exactly.
one thing we originally said is when we refinanced it, we were saying, oh, it's no change to the taxpayer. But it was actually wrong. It's actually, it is a savings that
of
we
80,000,
we
yep.
just,
That is
Yeah.
correct.
Other questions or comments? This is, the portion of the agenda that says board discussion on the budget. I know we've been through it a couple of times, so I think a lot of the issues have been resolved.
Because, I mean, I personally feel that we got, the process was quote unquote, we got a first finalization a lot earlier than we used to get. So we had all that time to digest it. You know what I mean? It was never this, the cycle, you speeded up the cycle a bit. I mean, and good.
Yes.
I mean, that's in a good way.
I
So,
think what helped
yeah.
us is we utilized the school software, so we weren't using an outside
Yes,
Excel
same.
spreadsheet. We've used everything that the school helps, the school generates. We've brought in our principals, our special ed directors, Dr. Mucci, Melissa. We brought in everyone and did it cumulatively as a team, because a process such as this, it has to be a team. And we're a compiler. Our office compiles the numbers that we generate from all those sources, and it was a seamless process, and it worked well with all my colleagues. It's a great team.
Melissa?
So, what you've done this year as far as saving, much more than pennies on the dollar, is amazing. Go through the refinancing that we did, everything with the maintenance projects, how to properly utilize our capital and maintenance reserves. But I'm looking at page 8, operating expenses. And as impressed as I am compared to where we came from in the past, I'm still scared when I look at 8. Because especially when right now everyone at home is feeling the pinch of the dollar right now, and with all the costs going up. So when I look at 8, all I look at is this is just going to get higher. We have this is not an issue. We have an amazing staff. We have built-in increases that our staff gets, well deserved. Health insurance is going up every year. Transportation is going up every year with limited bus drivers. Special education tuition can be very unpredictable because you don't know who's in district and and who has to be sent out of district, which is extremely expensive. And then other expenses in general, it goes up.
Paper, yeah, absolutely.
So, obviously, I know that you've worked in the last year at trying to find other cost-cutting measures, but what other, looking at sources of revenue, are we, what else can we do to counteract the increases in expenses that we're gonna see year after year? So we're not solely reliant, we don't have to go above the 2%, in other words.
I think we'll take it in two buckets. The first bucket is on the expense side. The one bucket that's still out there that's a large expense is health benefits. So we're looking at alternatives. We know 300%, we have to negotiate that with the teachers union. We're in the, I would say, I am personally in the preliminary stage of alternatives that would have to be negotiated. We would like to sit down and see what we could do to offer just as rich as plans as we have now, but try to find some cost reduction in the industry. So that's the one item on the expense side. On the revenue side, Dr. Mucci and I are very familiar with a before and after school program. We ran it very, very successfully in another school district. It generated revenue which I thought was unable to obtain, and it was very, very lucrative. We paid our teachers handsomely. We had paraprofessionals. It ran from 7 in the morning till 6 at night, and we were able to then fund a portion of the custodial team that had to clean those rooms, take portions of the electric bill, and then we're freeing up the money that we're charging off to before and after school to our current expense, which we're really, is what you're really trying to do. And we were a relatively small district, and we generated almost $200,000. So I think just talking of two big items, health benefits is your big expense on the expense side, and bringing in-house a before and after school program that we manage, we control, we pay those individuals, and we started some steps already looking into that program on how we would roll it out. And I think those are 2 steps of a 10-step process to keep this moving, because everything is going up, from copy paper to copy toner to transportation to diesel fuel, $7 a gallon.
And I feel like we've cut the fat, you've cut the fat, I should say, as much as possible. It's the only other, I mean, I'm very proud to say that our district, we're not dealing with what some other districts are dealing right now in cutting staff and in cutting programs. I really commend us for that.
Another thing that's gonna really help is the money we're spending on capital improvement.
Yeah.
By protecting and solidifying our buildings now is gonna save us hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road. So maybe that maintenance number of 2.2 million, it's not gonna be 2.2 next year. It's gonna be less, because we don't need to go out and spend $100,000 on an HVAC guy or a plumber. So it's not just what are we saving and cutting, it's what are we putting into our buildings now that's gonna protect our buildings and keep them going nice and strong. So that's something else they've already
But I
worked
think
on.
it's a universal problem in any public school in the state of New Jersey. I mean, Westfield, right down the road from us, not good. I mean, they're just cutting a lot of positions, and we're trying to stay ahead of that curve. I mean, we talk monthly, weekly on like where we are financially, where we're going, what we're doing, what staffing do we need, spikes in population. So we're looking at all those areas, but I think there's really no right answer that I could give you that just puts the Band-Aid on the cut.
No,
I
you
think
did give me the answer, in saying, we're looking on
2 issues.
2 issues, and that's very
But I
helpful.
think it's even bigger than that. I think we collectively as a team, teachers, administrators, everyone, just have to tighten up a little. If we save, 1% on 20 million, it's 200,000. I mean, they're big numbers, so if we're not asking for a lot, just make that extra click on the computer to check another vendor. Look at cooperative purchasing agreements that we could purchase in. So there's a lot of avenues that we could look into to improve on what we're doing right now, so, and we're all about that.
Thank you.
Maybe Alex and Matt could add to this. I guess another thing that is on the horizon as a possibility, will we contract for only be maintenance? Excuse me. And then we get a person or persons to do the HVAC and other license requiring repairs.
Right.
And maybe that could be a quote-unquote shared service that we have with the township or another district, et cetera, that those individuals that are licensed and very professional.
I think
So-
part of the process is, now that we've put out our quote, we now see in today's dollars what each of those positions pay with health benefits, with social security, with everything. And we are confident, we've spoken about on numerous occasions, that we could, exactly as you state, keep the custodial component with the third party, bring in our own maintenance people that have a vested interest in what they're doing in our community, and find that plumber or that electrician or the HVAC, have the hours work from 6 o'clock to 2:30 or 6 to 2. So if they have a private practice, they could go after that and do the practice, but they're getting their health benefits and their salary here, and they're bringing a high skill set of specific skills that we need. And that's the model we're looking at right now. Keep the director, under the director have a two-step approach, one specializing in plumbing, the other in electrical. Your director could be an HVAC man, so now you have all three trades that we would need. Employees of the Long Hill Board of Education, and then contract out the custodial with Pritchard, Aramark, whoever the viable candidate's gonna be. And that model exists far more than the current model we have in Long Hill. And we're told that every other day by everyone that walks through this door. That our model is quite unique in the way we have it set up, that a third-party company is doing the maintenance, the landscaping, and the custodial. In other words, we're the only district doing it.
Wasn't that also, though, I know you said that's the model that you're looking at, maybe I mistook it that, I thought somewhere there was a shared service idea in there.
We've been in contact with 3 entities so far about trying to do the shared service.
Oh,
And
okay.
every time we get it going, it just the brakes seem to be put on. So
Okay.
we are gonna do what we need to do, and then if someone wants to buy our person for a day, we're all ears. I mean, we're so close to one another, and, you could save all your electrical work for one day, and then you could pay us 1/5 the salary and take our electrician for the day. So I think we may have to take the lead, and then we may have to sign off for other communities to use our skill sets, because we're really not moving as fast as we would like in that shared service arena.
Would we be allowed to look for sharing services outside of a school, an educational arena? So if there was
We could do that as long as that individual has the criminal history background and all the.
No, not an individual, I'm talking about a group.
Volunteer?
A facility in town.
That, shoot me an
Maybe in the
email
same
and
building?
I'll
Okay.
find out about it.
You mean like in the same building?
No.
No, not the
No,
township.
no.
Any other budget-related questions?
I do.
Sure.
I have a question. In terms of all the HVAC stuff, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought, couldn't we have taken it out of the ESSER funds?
We are taking out
Oh,
ESSER
okay.
funds, yes.
Okay, so that's
yes.
not part of the big
Correct,
pie. Okay.
right. What has happened, the key with the ESSER funds is they're non-reoccurring funds.
Right.
So you want to spend dollars that are not going to hopefully be non-reoccurring expenses. Some districts are funding teaching positions with ESSER funds, but then in year 2, when you have no more ESSER fund, how do you maintain the teacher? Our strategy was to use ESSER funds for one-off expenditures. We fixed the fan, it's fixed. Hopefully, we don't have to fix it for another 8 to 10 years. So we've taken that approach that you're thinking of and implemented it and used those funds for, I'd say over $250,000 worth of ESSER funds has gone to HVAC improvements.
And maintenance too? Like paving?
We used our maintenance reserve for paving, not the paving. The
Not
paving was
ESSER,
on our
okay.
side, yep.
Are we starting the discussion, or are we just asking Dan questions?
Well, it's a discussion,
Okay.
which
that's-
mostly is asking Dan.
I feel like it's Jeopardy, like what is tax levy?
Fortunately, you're the man with the answer, so. Let's see.
I'm going to make a comment now and then forever hold my peace. But I'm looking at the 21-22 preliminary tax from last year, and I'm seeing the big ticket items: county tax, local tax, district school tax, regional school tax. This year, county tax is held flat. Local tax is 1.8% increase. The district school tax is gonna be 2%. The regional school tax, right now, I think they're under 1% as the whole region. I'm just a little dismayed that, and I asked for this back when we first met, as we can even better see now, it cost me $35 to get a half a tank of gas. People who are struggling, they can't put food on their table. Older people on fixed incomes don't have the extra bucks. Now, as you said, $200,000 on this budget is, 1% or less, but, and I wasn't asking for much. As you and I
Yes,
discussed,
yes,
there
my office, yeah.
was a little bit of money that did not need to be outlaid this year. It's always nice to get everything you want, but I think as good stewards, which we are supposed to be, of the town's finances, the taxpayers' finances, we could have looked a little harder to maybe squeeze the nickel a little harder, to at least give the appearance, if not the fact, that we're doing the best we can with every dollar. Please do not take that as a comment that you and Mark and Dr. Mucci haven't done a fabulous job. The change in the last year and 5 months from when I first started to now, it's incredible. It's fantastic. But sometimes when people are home and they look at the paper and they say, damn, that school district is just taking as much as they can take. I see better services. I see how we're doing well. It's just the people who don't get to go into the buildings. I was talking with people a few days ago, and they didn't realize that you couldn't just walk into a school to see what it looks like. I'm like, no, you can't. Unless you have business there, you're not going to see it. Like, oh, that's interesting. People just don't know what happens beyond the front door.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're done?
Well, just wanted to say that I wish we could have done that, but apparently we'll worry about that next year.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Sitting on the finance committee, I don't see where we could have cut anything, because how we've moved around so much, and how the cutting of the fat that we did. I think everyone also has to understand that as much as there's this 2% increase, we learned a couple of years ago by foregoing that 2% increase for however many years in a row, that put our school district in such financial jeopardy. And you know who paid for it? The kids.
And the taxpayers.
The
And the
kids paid
taxpayers.
for it, and then the taxpayers end up paying for it. And I understand that people who do not send their kids to school in district see what they're paying, that it goes towards the school district. But what they're also paying towards your school district, when you see a house that can't sit on the market for more than a few days in Long Hill, this school district is what also is driving up the value of their homes. It's what's driving up the equities in their homes. Which is usually everyone's biggest investment. I think instead of seeing we know that the cost of cutting anything is directly coming from a child, rather than looking on trying to cut things where you really can't trim the fat much more. What instead is our town doing to bring in more revenue, other than the burden on the taxpayer that we're all feeling, not at the expense of a child? So I absolutely see where you're coming from, and like Matt said before, my biggest eye-opener was when I joined the finance committee. Because, we check on Amazon, we check on Target, we see what's cheapest. You think this is a whole new world. And it's a world where the expenses are just always going up. And when you cut or fail to do what I believe is our fiduciary responsibility to do, which is to stick by the 2% increase, you're directly affecting the children in this town. And I hear what you're saying, because trust me, you know how I feel about the reassessments every single year, which I've been one of the unlucky ones. But I think we have to look at it at a bigger scale, and not necessarily, I'm not saying that you're blaming the school district, but not necessarily blame the school district, but see what our town on a larger scale can do, other than hitting the taxpayer as a whole.
I am definitely not blaming the school district. and we need to take as much as we can. I'm talking about the perspective of the people who are looking at it. And in my time, I've never seen a budget that couldn't have been squeezed a little bit.
All right, Alex?
Thank you so much. This is one of my least favorite things to comment on, but I think this is the third time that we've gone around on it. And the financial picture that I see unfold in the 15-year historical tax levy is appalling to me.
Yeah.
For the reason, not to criticize past boards for the difficult decision that they're forced to make, but essentially, a school district is, imagine it being a household, and they have the ability to try to anticipate what their expenses will be in future years, as Dan explained, and set their income based on that, right? It's an ask. You're asking the community, based on your projected expenses for the forthcoming future, to give you enough funds so that you could meet your statutory obligation and your constitutional obligation. Statutory obligation meaning I have to keep a balanced book, and your constitutional obligation to provide, a thorough and efficient education to the kids of your community. Now, we have alarming cost increases going around, and I sympathize and somewhat empathize with the people in the community and people throughout the state and people throughout the country and people throughout the world who are experiencing these dramatic price fluctuations. But therein lies our constitutional obligation to educate kids and our statutory obligation to maintain balanced books, right? We've seen what years of underfunding at the expense of the schools, at the expense of the staff, at the expense of the teachers, at the expense of the students means, and you're not actually saving any money. You're just kicking the can down the road. And that's the frustrating reality that a chart like this reveals, right? You can save money for this year and take a deep breath. But what you're doing is just pushing down the expenses down the road, and frankly, you're probably magnifying those expenses later on because you're ignoring the things that needed to be done, right? What I can't stand, and what we were talking about in the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting in a complimentary way, is that you see how well a school can operate when you actually just do the little things right. When you fix the HVAC system and you understand how the system works and you maintain it correctly, you don't have the emergency, like engineering visits. You don't have the disruption where the principal and the teachers and the classmates have to shuffle into another room and disrupt the entire day for these people. They need to have a stable educational environment, and we need a stable budget. So I'm sitting here listening to the conversation, trying to swallow the question whether or not I want to set you up, Dan, and say, hey, Dan, is the 2% that we've increased this year, knowing that's our theoretical statutory cap, is it going to keep us steady in this green comfort zone for the foreseeable future? I know that's not a fair question to ask because you don't really know what the dramatic changes and exterior factors might be. But I frankly think it would be irresponsible, as I've said in 2 prior meetings ago, not to take the 2% increase, knowing when so many other costs, every single one that you ran down, Melissa, are 5 to 10 to 15% to maybe even bigger increases going forward. I'm concerned the 2% may not be enough, and I'm worried about the cuts or the hard decisions we're going to have to make going forward. We're talking about reducing the pay to participate program because that's unfair to the community. Well, we're going to have to make other cuts too if all of these costs continue to increase. I just don't want to see us go backwards on this. I think we've learned our hard lesson. I think 2% is abundantly fair given the quality of the education we're providing. I love the time and energy and effort that everyone on the board and the administration is focusing on the growth and the protection and the potential like profit and revenue positive side of things that we can go, which would better serve our community, which would bring in money. But to sit here and try to squeeze out 4 cents out of, or 4% at, not even 4%, sorry, 0.4% seems like a futile exercise that isn't really worth the money. You guys did a remarkable job on the budget. I'm very grateful for the stability that we look like we're in. I'm a little bit worried about the future because of all the costs that are coming. But I'm enthusiastic about the conversations we're having, the direction that we're going. I think this is a great budget.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Any pressing comments, given where we are time-wise?
I'll be super quick.
Go ahead.
Tom, I just think one of your points about the perception, the appearance, when you look at what other organizations are doing regarding their increases, we don't know in 2013, did we decrease while other people increased? You know, did in 2019, did we increase while they decreased? So comparatively, maybe they're able to decrease this year and we're holding, but that's just 1 year. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like we're not obligated to walk in step with them. I want to go back to what Melissa said too. I don't see wish list items on this budget. I see hopes for the future that we're not still charging parents to do spelling bees in sports. And we're not in a position right now to provide that for the community. And I think the community understands that we're stepping in the right direction to try and support our students and our student needs, but we don't have the money to do it right now. And I think it's unfortunate we don't, but I fully support the steps we've taken too. It's just where we are in our own progress.
Okay. Yeah, I'm very proud of this budget. I know it's student-centered. I mean, I joined this board because I wanted to invest in education in this community. I think it's our most important reason to be part of this community. So I'm very proud of this. I thank everyone for their work on this. I thank everyone for their comments, and whether it's positive, pushback, challenges, I think it's all part of the dialogue. So thank you to the board, and thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Comments from the public on agenda items. Okay, I'm going to move to resolutions then. Minutes, number 1. Karen, will you move those in?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Abstain.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Revolo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Financials with the highlight of number 2, which will be our budget, and then number 9, which is the Long Hill Administrators Association contract. We have a 5-year contract up for vote. I want to thank Ms. Dawson and her team for working so well with the board on this. So Danielle, won't you move in financials number 2 through 34?
So moved.
Second.
Clarification?
Yes, go ahead.
There's 2 and 3 both pertain to the budget. One is the appropriations for the lavatories and the parking lot, and then the other one is the total tax levy. Are they inseparable? Are they bifurcated?
Which numbers are we looking at here?
2 and 3.
Yeah, I think that legally, Dan, right, you had to separate out.
You could vote on it, vote 2, and then vote from 3 to 34.
Okay, I think we're fine with
Yeah.
2 to 34.
2 to 34? Yeah.
We had a second?
I have a second.
Okay, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay, roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
We're going all the way to 34.
We are.
So yes to all, but abstain from 27.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes on all, but no on number 3.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Special services, number 35, Ann.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Personnel, number 36 through 58, congratulations to those newly tenured teachers, and a thank you to Ms. Scowbucks? Scrowbucks, thank you. Okay, Matt, number 36 through 58.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes, except, What number are we going to?
58.
58.
Sorry. Yes, except abstain from 38 and 39. And 40.
38 through 40 abstentions. Got it. And Mrs. Case.
Okay, yes. I was like, I think we're missing one. Tom, will you move in curriculum number 59?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Okay, roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Policy number 60 to 61, Alex.
So moved.
Second?
Questions? Roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Melissa, will you move in other number 62 and 63?
So moved?
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. Katie, will you move in A1 financials?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mr. DeGiorgio?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskopf?
Yes.
Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Ruvalo?
Yes.
Mrs. Case?
Yes. All right, any items for discussion? Old business?
I don't know whether this be considered old business. Again, it might have been something I should have mentioned before. I believe that I sent to all the committees something called a committee issue sheet, that you can do a checklist, just to go through and look at it and see if there's things that your committee should address to improve how it works. So I just wanted to mention that you do that. And committee goals. I know it's like halfway through the year, but what we want to do is have you identify 2 or 3 key goals that'll be real action items for the year. Generally, and obviously, they would be associated with something that's been identified with the strategic plan, which is going to be the next step that we take, where when you're reporting, providing minutes, et cetera, that you identify progress on the strategic plan items that are assigned to your committee. So I just wanted to reference that. So not all the committees have put in their 2 or 3 pointed goals for the year. So like if you could do that.
If you thought
And then,
Karen forgot,
and then when
she
we
did.
get them, we'll post them on the website. We could do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if you guys could add that to committee agendas, that would be great. Any other old business? New business? Melissa?
I'll be brief, I promise. April was Autism Acceptance Awareness Month, whatever you want to call it. And I just want to say for next year, I hope we can see some more activities actually focusing around that and educating the children as to what autism really is. And just a quick example, in March, when it was Dr. Seuss week or whatever, and we went in to read to the kids, I read to my kids' classrooms about autism. And third and second grade, these kids had no idea what autism was. And the reason, I know this must be something hard to teach because autism is a spectrum and it comes with many different personalities, many different traits. And I just think that we know so much more now than we did 20 years ago about what autism is. The richest man in the world has autism right now. So our kids in the future are going to be working with people who have autism. And they're going to be managing people with autism, and they're very likely going to be working for people with autism. So if we can teach our kids now and maybe instead of just wearing a color shirt, I appreciate that we have all these color shirts days, but sometimes I don't know if these kids know why they're wearing these color shirts. And I think we have such an extremely amazing special services group in our school. We actually have an in-house director. With their skill and what they can come up with to teach per grade level. Middle school, you can have an adult, I'm not talking about getting Temple Grandin to come in, but you can have an adult speaker come in. These kids could be taught about how to recognize other people with autism and how to respond to those traits and because not only are they learning compassion, but they're also benefiting the autistic child that they're helping. You know, if they can better learn these things. And so all I'm asking is, listen, I know this was a hard year. This was a year of recovery, as I see it. And not only did we recover, we excelled this year. And I'm so incredibly proud of our district. I know everyone's overwhelmed. I raised 4 kids. I don't raise 828. So I cannot imagine that. But next year, since we have all this time, if we could just focus on getting to the what, why, and educating the kids about these days that we practice more, then I think everybody will be better off.
Thank you. Matt?
I just want to congratulate the Watchung Hills High School robotics team. They made it to the World Championships this past year in Houston, Texas. And they finished 11th in their division, actually made to the playoffs and actually won the first round and got into the semifinals. And they were ecstatic. They exceeded their own expectations. What they learned was absolutely amazing. I was actually, luckily, that weekend, I had to go to my mother's place in Raleigh to help sell her house. I was able to catch a flight that Friday morning at 6:30 in the morning, go out there for the day, and come back at 8:30 at night. And it was just an amazing experience and seeing these kids work. I mean, the statistics they're doing on their own. I mean, my son is using calculus. Not even learning it, he's actually using it. I mean, I've never used calculus in my life. And the scouting teams they have and their ability to actually go and find data and mine their own data. And then some kid, they actually created their own app and showed the app and used the app at the competition. And everyone was like, oh my God, how'd you do that? And it was just, and the real reason, not only because my son is on it, but the core of that team is actually Long Hill. They started way back when, back in 5th grade. They made in force, thank you. They made it to the World Championships at that level, and then they continued it again. And it's just they're watching them grow from one section to the next, and being it done in this school system, including and going into high school, says a lot about our community, who we are, and the school that we have. So just congratulations to them. And actually, to the 3 teachers there, I forget their names, but there's 3 teachers that. I know Mr. Ponzio is one of them. There's 2 other teachers that go out of their time. They spent the entire weekend there on their own time. And what they've done to help these kids is just absolutely amazing. So just shout out to them.
When we hosted, at one point,
Central Middle.
a tournament, I went, most amazing thing. Most amazing thing to see what these kids put together. It was really, you're right, it's very revealing, and like we hosted, and then we did well. We did well, and it was like,
We won that one. We won that competition. That's what I remember.
Madam President and Madam Vice President, is it something that we can do to send a letter of accommodation to the to Watchung Hills and just, cheer them on, say, great job? Especially since most of them came from here.
We don't normally do that, but, we could consider, who would we?
Relations to discuss.
Yeah, maybe Katie, if you want to discuss it in
Sure.
community relations.
Put that on the agenda.
There you go.
I was going to say that I believe we have some of our own students right now in Texas competing at the, I don't know if it's elementary or middle school or both, but there's definitely some Millington students in Texas at the moment. I'm not sure about Central.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
And I was going to discuss that
Oh.
at our next.
Well, there you
That's
go.
going to be at our
That's
next
a
Board event
spoiler.
meeting to say how they did. And actually, and I didn't mention it tonight, but one of the things that the Ed Foundation Force is looking to do is to expand the robotics program, hopefully find more volunteers. It currently, what Matt hasn't explained is that it is a parent-driven group. There are no, there's no one external from the school that teaches these, no one from the district. These are parent-led. And so these parents did an incredible job for years and years, and now these kids are in with the high school doing amazing things. They did amazing things here. And so what we're hoping is that we can find ways to reduce the cost of the precursor robotics classes, because that rate has gone up and up. I mean, this year was $240 to take the robotics class. That is the precursor to the team. And so that's something we're looking to do in force, because it is such an incredible program that we are so proud of.
So my recollection is when they came years ago, Matt, did your son come when they came and they, yeah. So one of the leads on it, who was a parent, worked for Bell Labs. And you don't get that very often, but we are uniquely situated to be up the road from Bell Labs. So maybe there's a way to find support. Maybe there's other parents in town from Bell Labs, and also maybe just outreach, because I know that most companies like to support sort of their community or surrounding communities, but you don't get any better than that. They have 9 Nobel Prizes amongst their employees.
Yes, we were exceptionally lucky to have, Mr. Hadzik.
Yes.
Yes.
We were exceptionally lucky to have him tutor our kids.
Yes.
Wasn't
that's-
he voted some kind of,
He,
like,
at that
conference, yeah?
Kentucky, it was Louisville, Kentucky, at that World Championships, he won the Mentor of the Year.
Yeah.
Because of
Yeah.
a letter written by a child that he tutored. It wasn't because they looked at letters, and there was a letter written by the children that said, this is what this guy has done for me.
Yeah.
It's amazing, absolutely
Okay.
Hashtag Long Hill Pride.
Do we
That's the
have-
way to end the meeting, right?
Well, not
Oh,
yet.
not end, I'm sorry.
Comments from the public? Well, thank you all for, if you want to come ahead. At this point, the Board of Education welcomes comments from any member of the public on any topic. Please note that as per Board Policy 1120, a total of 15 minutes is allocated for public comments at any single board meeting. In order to provide residents the opportunity to comment, individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each at any particular board meeting. The board may extend these time limits at its discretion. Any questions should be directed to the board president, and depending upon the nature and complexity of the question, it may or may not be answered during the meeting by the administration. If so, the response would occur after this public portion of the meeting has concluded. Everyone has the freedom to speak, but please be advised that anything said in public may have legal ramifications, and there is no protection regarding statements made by the public. Please state your name and address before you begin.
I'm Daniel Rogers, and I just wanted to thank you guys real quick. I guess that this was a really great event to attend. I actually have been here in Long Hill for 5 years, and this is actually my first time attending the Board of Education meeting, so I definitely want to attend more. Especially was thankful for Ms. Rovolo for sharing and kind of giving kudos for the special services. My two boys have IEPs, and I can only say that that's very apparent in Long Hill schools. We actually often rave that amongst other family and friends that we have about how we have such great services here. So I'm just grateful for all your work, and thank you for all you guys are doing. So that's it.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you.
That's the way to.
Anne, will you move us into executive session?
The board shall enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing the superintendent's evaluation.
Second?
Oh, second.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay.